What's up everybody? Today I'm going to show you how you can replace an Xbox One Elite controller shoulder button. Unfortunately, these break very often. They use the exact same design as the second gen regular Xbox One controllers, and it's a totally flawed design because essentially what happens is the only thing tensioning your shoulder button is a small piece of plastic. Do you see that bracket and how it's broken? Every time you push the shoulder button, you're bending that plastic. That's the actual tensioner. And so eventually it's just going to break. But luckily, the repair is fairly simple. You just need a replacement shoulder button bracket. Those are about $10 on Amazon. And you're going to need a T8 security Torx screwdriver in order to pop off the 5 screws that we're going to need. In the description below, I will link to both the shoulder button I used and the little controller opening kit that I got, which I definitely recommend, and I'll show you why in a minute. First step, pull the battery compartment off, and you're peeling off your little serial number sticker. This probably does void the warranty, by the way, and you'll see our first screw that we need to remove. So we're going to remove this screw, and the next step after the screw is out is pulling off the little rubberized pads on the backside, and this is where the controller opening kit is nice. It comes with a small piece of plastic you can fit in right between the trigger, and it just pops off nice and easily. I do want to note the screws we're going to be removing, one at the top and one at the bottom. There's also a little strip of adhesive tape on your grips, basically, so don't be worrisome if you hear or feel that when you're pulling it off. And you're going to pull the seam. Do you see how I opened the seam closest to the back first and then pulled off in that direction? It's that easy. And now we're going to remove the 4 screws that are on each side. Well, there's 2 on each side, 4 in total. So also it's easier if you pull off the D-pad. Of course, pulling off the magnetic control strips is helpful. So we're just going to remove those 2, and we're going to do the same on the other side. Now at this point, the plastic face of your controller will easily lift off, revealing what looks like something out of Tron. Really cool looking thing. Now you need to be careful because you have a small little switch here that lets you change between controller setting 1 or controlling setting 2. You see it right here. That thing will just fall right out, so don't drop that on your carpet. Remember that it's there, and set it aside so that we can put this thing back in later. My first time I actually forgot to put this back in and had to reopen up the controller. We're also going to remove the domes. So the trick here now is actually popping off the little white and silver strip above the Xbox One button. I forgot to pull off the domes, so we're just going to pull those straight out. Very easy. Now the trick here, guys, is that you pull up from the white side, okay? You pull up from the white side, and you want to be very gentle. As you can see, there's small teeth on the back side that are going to need to be taken care of. You don't want to break the little bracket that sits above your Xbox One button. Also, if you're having trouble getting it off, you can actually pull the back of your controller away from the front of it. Do you see this little gap that appears here? That gives you a little bit more room to play with. So all you have to do is just gently start pulling the controller front away from the back. As I zoom in here, see the little bit of gap between the USB input? That is basically the latch of this bracket that you want to be very careful getting off. So you lift from the front. And I also am showing off here, you actually can't put the shoulder buttons in backwards. There's 2 little pegs that line up perfectly with the replacement shoulder button piece of plastic. And that's going to slot right in. And once you get it flush, make sure you give it a little push, and you might hear a little snap so that it sits nice and easily. And now we're just going to reinstall this onto our controller, starting with the back by the USB input. So do you see the USB input side? We're going to start there in the back. Be careful, there is a strip connected to the back plastic and the board of the controller. So notice here, I'm trying to show you guys, you start with the back, the top, and then it's just going to click right back down into place. You may need to give it a little bit of force, and you might need to wiggle your shoulder buttons a little bit to make sure that they get directly seated, but there's only one way it can seat, and when it actually clicks in, you'll hear it here, just like that. So you'll actually hear the click, and I'm showing the strip here to be careful of. That's on the back plastic. And then you're just going to make sure that the controller fits nicely back together. Push your shoulder buttons, push the bumpers to make sure they're all good. We're replacing the domes. And just put it back together as cautiously as possible. There's not a lot that can go wrong, but on the right trigger side, there's a small piece of metal, 2 small pieces of metal that you don't want to bend. So just when you're working with the controller at this point, be cautious and don't wrench things. Put back your center switch. You can put the faceplate back on. You can flip the controller now and reinstall the 4 screws, 2 on each side for each of the grips. Also, I'm testing the shoulder buttons to make sure that there's no tension and they're free. We put the controller grips back on. These snap right back into place very, very easily. Notice how I'm starting with the back and then clipping them in at the front side. We reattach the screw that's in the battery compartment and replace the little battery compartment thing, put our sticks back on, and it all works dandy. So for 25 bucks in about 10 or 15 minutes, you can replace your controller. Do not work on your controller on a carpeted surface. Make sure you discharge any static electricity that you may have built up by touching something metal and grounding yourself before working on the controller. And that's about it. If you guys have questions for me, let me know down in the description below. And Microsoft, if you're listening, please adapt a spring system. The Elite controller is way too expensive to have things like this happen. I mean, I think it looks pretty cool, actually, with those new black shoulder buttons, by the way. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day. If you found this helpful, leave a like, and we'll see you next time.